Still gift for it, John? Yeah. Good morning, how you doing?
Orange fields and Liddy was coffee, that's a dangerous combination up there. Take some practice. That takes some practice.
Okay, the time is now 9 a.m. The date is March 2nd, 2020. Today's date is Tuesday. We'll go ahead and call to order the meeting for the Statesboro City Council. We'll have our invocation and pledge of allegiance by Council Member Venus Mack.
Good morning. Let us pray. Dear God, I pray that you will continue to guide the council by the way of our thought, our speech, and our actions as we make the best decisions in regards to the citizens of Statesboro. Continue to dispense over this wonderful city of Statesboro, the city of peace, love, unity, safety, and steady progress. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'd like to get a motion from council to go into a recess so we can convene the Urban Redevelopment Agency meeting. Is there a motion for a recess?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let it be known. All right, we are now standing at recess. All right, we would like to call to order the the Statesboro Urban Redevelopment Agency meeting for March 2nd, 2021 at 9 a.m. City Clerk, will you give us a roll call?
When I call your name, if you can just say here. Jonathan McCaller,
Here.
Paulette Chambers,
Here.
Sherry Barr,
Here.
Elizabeth Johnson,
muted here.
thank you, John Riggs,
You muted, John. Yeah.
okay, Mary Foreman,
Here.
Maurice Hill,
Yeah, he's there, he's muted.
if you could just wave your hand,
Yeah.
thank you. Phil Boyle,
Here.
Ronald Love,
Yeah, he's absent.
Venus Mack,
Here.
Victor Dickey,
Here.
thank you.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 2, which is approval of our minutes from our February 16th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second to approve those minutes?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? We got a lot of Zoom going on this morning. All right, let's show that that is passed. We'll move down to agenda item 3, which is consideration of a motion to approve first simple supplemental bond resolution authorizing $4.5 million series 2021 revenue bond to issue by Truist Bank at 1.7% interest with maturity date of October 1, 2030. Mr. Penny, if you'll give us some insight into this.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the redevelopment agency. At this time, we'd like to call on Doug Gephardt, who is with Davenport, our financial advisor, to allow him to walk the agency through the bid that was received. And then once he completes his presentation, I'll come back with the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Doug, if you will.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Penny, for the introduction. Again, Mr. Chairman, members of the URA, thanks again for the opportunity to be in front of you this morning. As you may recall, we put out a bid. Davenport, in our capacity as financial advisor, talked about plant finance, and we went before you with the parameters of the bond resolution and started that. And today we're coming back to you with the actual results from the RFP. We wanted, before getting into it, give a little bit of perspective on just how good interest rates are. They've ticked up a little bit over the last few weeks or so, but when you look at it historically in this chart, you can see the interest rate range since 2000. So basically over the last 2 decades. The dark green bar is the high low for each one of those maturities, and the tan line that started going in between is where we are today, or as of February 19th. So you can see we're continuing to remain on the bottom end of the yield curve. So it's a great time to consider to go and borrow. Then this just sort of reiterates that point. The dark green line is where the yield curve is at today. And the light green bars is the percent of time interest rates have been lower. So basically, over the last 2 decades, rates have only been lower approximately 2 times. So great time to go in and lock in some long-term financing. So what Davenport did is we recommended going through a direct bank loan proposal where we put together a few page marketing document and solicited it to local, regional, and national. And what we got back about a week ago on the 23rd was 10 bids in response to that. Normally we like to see 3 to 5 bids, and so the fact that we received 10 bids is a testament to the city's financial strength. And the team that Mr. Penny and Ms. West and Mr. Boyles have on them running the tight script. So that's great. The high to low spread was a 147 to just over 2%. And so we can see there all the interest rates. But Truist provided, who is formerly BB&T, provided the lowest interest rate at 1.47%. And this was well below our planning rates, and wanted to go through with that. So a little more details on Truist Bank's financing. They authorized up to that full $4.5 million we talked about. Your loan, so just the 10 years, just as we had planned. Interest rate of 1.47% is fixed until final maturity, so it's not subject to change. It's not a variable rate. And it does allow for prepayment in full at par at any time, so there's no penalty to doing that. Additionally, what Davenport was able to do is negotiate a term into the prepayment that would allow for, in the event there's any unspent bond proceeds, so if the project costs come in under budget or whatever it may be, the city and the agency has the ability to apply those unspent bond proceeds and pay down the balance of the loan. So we've negotiated that term into there for you all. So that's why we're recommending borrowing the full $4.5 million, that you have the ability to pay it back in the event it's not needed. And we're looking to close around March the 11th. What you can see here is the final debt service schedule that we put on a fiscal year basis, roughly $120,000 for the first 5 years in the amortization structure, and that repayment is designed to allow the current SPLOST from both the city and the county to pay for the debt service on the bond, and then sort of for the balance of the remaining 5 years, a level debt service structure, and that is obviously contingent on the future SPLOST passing. If it doesn't pass, then the city is on the hook for that for those repayments. Want to make sure that that is clear. So it's a long-winded way of me saying that Davenport, in our capacity as financial advisor, recommend that we lock in this 1.47 interest rate that has great prepayment flexibility. It's fixed until final maturity. It's fixed between now and closing, and there's really very minimal costs associated with that. So what this little schedule, we got sent out the RFP, got the bids back, and what we are looking to do is asking the URA to consider the approval of the supplemental bond resolution this morning, if it's acceptable to you. The validation will be heard on March the 8th and then scheduled for a closing on March 11th, which in turn would allow for the funds to be deposited into the city's project fund. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you again, and we hope that you would consider approval of the bond resolutions.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, before we go further, I do want to introduce our bond counsel, have our bond counsel come before you. But I would like to ask Mr. Gephardt, Doug, there were a couple of issues that I just want to ensure that the Urban Redevelopment Agency is aware of. We are borrowing $4.5 million, but there are some things that could occur that would jeopardize the tax exempt status, and I think it's important for the redevelopment agency and the city council to be aware of those. Doug, would you mind just speaking to those?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Penny. In the bond resolution, the bank required some provisions that in the event that the city, this is all city controlled and agency controlled action, so it'd have to be a conscious action of the city and the agency to take. The first one that we talk about is the what's called the bank qualified rate. So when we marketed these bonds to the potential banks, we said that it was going to be bank qualified. And what that means is in this current calendar year, it is the intention that the city will not issue more than $10 million in this calendar year. And so by designating this bond as a bank qualified bond, the banks get to have basically a super tax exempt, an additional sort of benefit they have from that designation by supporting sort of the small issuers is the exemption. So in the event that for some reason we don't intend to issue more than the $5.5 million of bonds for the balance of the calendar year in 2021, and I think we wouldn't recommend moving forward with this rate if that were the case. But in the event the city were to go and issue $5.5 million, then there would be a transfer to what's called the non-bank qualified rate. And the non-bank qualified rate would go from the 1.47 that we have approved today, the existing rate, going up 10 basis points to a 1.57. So that's sort of the value of saying that we're going to be issuing less than 10 million, is roughly 10%, 0.1%, so 1.47 to 1.57. The other sort of covenant that's in there is what's called a taxable rate. And so as long as the bond proceeds are being spent on what they're supposed to be spent on, and that's the park project, then the rates won't change. But in the event the city were to go use the money for something that eventually would be considered a non-tax exempt purpose, such as a development project or things like that, then it would be converted over to the taxable rate. The taxable rate as provided by the bank is 1.85%. So we're not talking that we're going to be going to 4 or 5%. It'd be going from 1.47 to 1.85. Again, these are all actions that the city would have to make conscious decisions to violate these covenants. We don't foresee that happening on either one of these. So while they're included in the documents after talking with city staff our thought is that we would recommend considering, the inclusion of these provisions for the benefit of the lower interest rate moving forward with PPT. Mr. Benny, I think that answers it in full, but if not, I'm happy to explain further.
That does answer the question, and Mayor, when Doug explained it to me, I told him I didn't see us approaching that $10 million value.
Exactly.
And to think about this calendar year, we're already 3 months into the calendar year, and so we couldn't get a big enough project going forward. And we'd have to have some kind of major emergency for us to need to borrow $5.5 million between now and the end of December. And then the other part of it is that you're good stewards of your resources, and the intent is to ensure that we improve the parks to the maximum amount that we can, to add some things like ensuring that broadband is there and things of that nature. And so I didn't see either one of those being an issue, but I wanted to make sure the urban redevelopment agency was aware that those two issues are out there. And at this time, I'd like to introduce to you our bond counsel. We've seen him on Zoom, but he's live and in person this morning. John Fennell, come on, John.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Penny. I'm John Fennell. Happy to be here this morning. Really just help answer any questions if you have any. Our firm has acted as bond counsel for the city for a long time, and we appreciate being retained again. We've been working on all the documentation with y'all city attorney. As was already stated, we're in the process of validation. That hearing is supposed to be held on Monday morning at the Superior Court. And then once that's behind us, closing is scheduled for next Thursday. So assuming that the agency approves the terms that have been presented to you this morning, we're on schedule to close next Thursday. And at that point is when you will have the funds come into the account that will then start being used for these park improvements.
All right. Are there any questions by the agency for any of the presenters?
All right. Thank you.
Mayor, we would recommend to the Urban Redevelopment Agency, Mr. Chairman, we would recommend that you approve the issuance of these bonds.
All right. Seeing that there were no questions by the agency, is there a motion to approve agenda item 3?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
John here.
Okay.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. All right. With that being said, let it show that agenda item 3 is passed unanimously. We'll move down to agenda item 4, which is a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna assume John supports this. All right, good deal. The Statesboro Urban Redevelopment Agency stands adjourned. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Have a good day. The others may decide they want to stay there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to see you, John.
We will reconvene the Statesboro City Council meeting at this time. Is there a motion to reconvene?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right. We'll move down to agenda item number 4, recognition and public presentations. We have one item there, and that's a presentation of a GMA certificate to Councilmember Phil Boyer. It's always good when GMA recognizes its members for the work that they've done, and I can testify that when I'm on meetings, I see Councilman Boyer there in his capacity as trainer. And it is a great resource for the city of Statesboro to have someone in that capacity, because he's at the precipice of the latest trends. So we do want to present this, and I want to make sure I get this out right. Oh yeah, this looks good. I got to get my credits up. Come around on this side. But this is a good deal.
Always gotta check that, yeah. Maybe Lane can put it better.
Phil, last round to make me look tall.
Ready, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Don't smile, I promise.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Phil. Thank you for your service.
Thanks, John. 220 continuing education hours. That's
Yeah.
what this is.
Yeah, that's,
Congratulations, Phil.
Thanks.
and it matters when those is representing is continue to learn and better themselves. And that's regardless of what capacity we're in, always continue to grow. So Phil, that's a great thing. We'll move down to agenda item 5 for public comments. Lane, do we have any public comments?
No one signed up, Mayor.
Okay, so we move down to agenda item 6, which is consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda, approval of minutes from our call meeting on the 12th of February, our work session on the 16th of February, and our council minutes on the 16th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We move down to agenda item 7, which is the second reading and consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2021-01, or ordinance amending the Statesboro Code of Ordinances, chapter 38-26, adding the international property maintenance code to applicable codes for determination of nuisance. Mr. Penny, if you'll give us some insight.
Mayor, members of the council, it was sometime last year we started talking about the need for more specificity with our code enforcement. And so staff recommended that you adopt the International Property Maintenance Code. And so today is up for the second reading. However, we have identified that we do have an issue. And one issue is that when we presented this to you, we presented it with the brass height at 18 inches. And when we presented the document to you, it's been modified to 12 inches. And we would recommend the adoption at 18 inches. So if that's considered significant enough, we'll need the attorney to opine on whether that would require delaying the second reading, or we need to start back with the first reading. But we would recommend that we set it at 18 inches. And from a professional standpoint, I would recommend that to you because from a code enforcement stand, it doesn't take long with all the rain we had to get 12 inches. And that extra 6 inches means a lot. And so I would recommend to you that we set it at 18 inches versus the 12 inches.
Okay. Attorney, is that considered a significant change where we have to revert back to a first reading?
Since it was approved at first reading at 18 inches, which appears to be the case, was it approved at first reading at that? We would need to go back to first reading on it, because it is a significant, yeah.
Changing one number in a 40-page document is significant.
Because that was one of the.
Tell you what, I would, if that's the case, I would make a motion to suspend the rules, and then make a motion to include that in there, and we'll just vote it in, because to go back for 2 more readings for one number in a 40-page document is just kind of nutty.
And as long as that's a 5-0 decision, that is fine. We do recommend that change, and we do recommend waiving that formality and having council unanimously approve the waiver and adopt as 18 inches.
You okay with that,
Yeah,
Mitch?
well, I normally don't do this, but if there's a motion to suspend the rules on that one, do we have that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
If you guys want to know real quick what we're doing, we're just suspending the rules on this one vote so we can pass this ordinance today and not go back.
Yeah.
It takes unanimous 5 of us
Yeah.
to suspend the rules to do that
Yeah.
vote.
And I am in support of doing that.
But it's just for this one vote.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
That's why I said
so
aye.
we had a motion and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
2.
Aye.
So I have a request, please, in the midst of this. It's hard to keep up, particularly with people on Zoom, and I know it's hard for Leah sometimes to tell when we just do voice, folks. And I understand our ordinances call for voice votes, but there's nothing in our ordinances to prevent also having a show of hands, which I think makes it easier to follow and easier for Leah to keep a correct record of activities. So I'd like to request that at least until the end of COVID, that we also include a show of hands on votes. Because every now and then, it's like we don't even call for ayes, and it's like, don't call for nays, because it sounded like everybody, but maybe somebody didn't. So I'd like to request, if no objections from council, that we go to a show of hands in addition to the whole vote.
Yeah, we can do that from the chair, we can do that. Yeah, that's no problem at all. But what's your vote?
I'm fine with the suspension today.
Okay, so it's a 5-0 vote. All right, and so we'll move to agenda item 7. Councilman Boyd, if you will, make that motion.
Yes, Mayor, if you would, I'll make a motion to approve the second reading and consideration of ordinance 2021-01 with the single modification of changing the requested grass height from 12 inches to 18 inches per management request.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay.
You're opposed to the whole thing, huh? Okay.
All right, so with a 4-1 vote, agenda item 7 has passed. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 8, consideration of a motion to approve a third lease agreement with T-Mobile regarding Malecki Drive Water Tower. Mr. Penny, if you'll give us some insight on that.
I'm gonna pass that one to the city attorney.
Okay.
Mayor and council, we work with a GMA subsidiary to Ron and Greg Fender with our tower leases and other sorts of these utilities. And they were presented with a request from T-Mobile. They need to upgrade some of their equipment on the Malecki Drive tower. That's the one over by the stadium. And this is just simply changing out. They've had this location since, I believe, they've had cellular equipment on there since 1997. Clearly, technology changes. This is not going to affect the load on the tower or the amount of space. It's just simply upgrading the equipment, and for that reason, there will be no change in the rent amount. But we do recommend that this third lease amendment to T-Mobile's Malecki Drive Tower cellular contracts be approved.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there any discussion by council? Seeing that there's no discussion, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by a show of hands?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, let it show that that measure is passed unanimously. We move down to agenda item 9, which is consideration of a motion to award a contract to John E. Lavender and Associates in the amount of $2,877,954 and authorize the mayor to execute contract documents for Louetta Moore Park and Ready Street Park Improvements Project. Mr. Penny, if you'll give us some insight.
Mayor, members of the council, this is very important to the earlier work that you approved the issuance of the bonds. And it's pretty amazing that we're even at this point today to be ready to in a couple of weeks to begin construction. And so we went through a process where we had 3 pre-qualified bidders. We received 2 bids. One bid was deemed unresponsive. And so this morning, we're standing before you recommending the award of the bid to John Lavender and Associates for $2,877,954. $2,877,954. Now, this is a construction part of the bid. There are some other things that will come forward, but such as playground equipment. We will have that on the agenda at the next meeting. However, in coordination with Parks and Recreation Department and with our purchasing staff, we feel very good about this bid. And so this morning, I stand before you and recommend that you award the bid to John Lavender and Associates for the park improvements.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion by council?
Just real quick, so we got two 2.9 in the construction contract, 33 in the woods. You were saying, where do we anticipate the total amount coming in? And I realize, you know, it's gonna shift.
Yeah, and,
I'm just curious.
um,
Because I really thought the idea that if you didn't spend all the money, that would kick it back into the bond. I think that's a really good idea. It's a great way to keep the cost of it down. So I was just curious what our total cost is gonna be approximately.
we still think, okay, if you take that 4.5, you're gonna have to deduct $80,000 for issuance costs. So
Right.
we're at 4.42, okay? We still think we're gonna be somewhere north of $4.1 million.
Okay.
Plus you have design costs, plus you have contract administration. And again, as I stated earlier, when we finish this project, we want to ensure that we've got everything we need at those locations. Like, right now, you go to Louetta Moore, you want to have a meeting at the Love Jones building, there's no Wi-Fi. And so it's impossible to do that. We're gonna have things in the park, we have a proposal to get that done. And then for some security reasons, in these parks, we need to ensure that we have advanced technology to be able to help police when police can't be there. And so we're gonna be looking at some technology that we would be able to include as well. But so the bid is at 2.8. We'll probably be in the area of, with Parks and Recreation and, with the playground, and I still got a bid that's gonna come in, so I'm hesitant to give the number. But we're probably, somewhere about 4.3, 4.4. Then the designer also recommended about 20% contingency. Because when you look at the project, this is a rehab project. And when you're doing rehab, anything's liable to come up. And so that rehab, that contingency is roughly close to about $600,000. Hopefully we won't get there. And if we don't get there, then we take that money, we'll deal with the broadband, we'll deal with the security matters, and we still might get close to 4 million, 4.1, but if we don't, we turn around, take the balance, and pay down the bonds.
And if you'll indulge me for one more second, Mayor, the reason I asked Mr. Penny is because I've, not that I didn't have this realization before, but it's becoming more and more apparent. In 5, 10, 20 years, most of us up here, most of us out there are gonna be gone, there's gonna be other folks. In 50 years, and there might be a couple people in here alive, but probably, maybe this table, but everybody else, we all gonna be gone. In 100 years, that park is still gonna be there in some form or fashion. And my point is, I don't wanna cut corners and things like that. Let's make sure that if we're buying the equipment, we're putting in the technology, that kind of thing. There's no sense going cheap when this is gonna be a long-term project that's gonna outlive every single one of us in that room.
Amen. I agree.
So that's why I was asking about the extra money.
Well, I think that is our intent.
Okay.
And so as we're looking at things, we've got the design as is, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But again, I recommend the award of the bid to John Lavender and Associates.
Okay. Any further discussion by council? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, we move down to agenda item 10, which is consideration of a motion to award contract to Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions in the not to exceed amount of $33,560 and authorize the mayor to execute contract documents for construction administration services for the Louetta Moore Park and Great Street Park project. Mr. Pena.
Give the mayor and council, as you're doing the project, it's important to have the designers to come back, review the project, and ensure that we are building as it was designed. And so that's why with contract administration, Wood and Associates would provide that service for us. But I will also say we have great staff that will be a gentleman with more than 30 years of experience with GDOT that will be overseeing the project for us. at both locations, and so we feel very good about what we have going on, but we would recommend the contract with Wood and Associates for construction administration.
Thank you. Any discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Show of hands. All right. Let's show that passed unanimously. We move down to agenda item 11. Consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2021-11, a resolution requesting approval to apply for the staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant for the city of Statesboro. Mr. Penny, if you can give us some insight.
Mayor, members of the council, last year we submitted a SAFER grant for 20 or 22 firefighters. We do have need for additional firefighters. And so this year what we're asking you for is permission again to submit the application to SAFER. However, this year, instead of asking for 22, we're going to ask for 12 firefighters. And we believe, hopefully we'll be a lot more competitive this time around. And so we would recommend that you authorize us the ability to apply for those grant funds.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. Any discussion by council?
Is this the one that this changes where we won't have to do a matching if we get the grant?
Yes, in this one, before, when we first applied, we were gonna have to, I think the first year was gonna be 100%, and then it would go down. However, because of the pandemic, they modified it, and they were gonna do 100%. So what you have before you at this time is, if we were to receive this, the grant would pay 100% for 3 years, and then we would be responsible for the full cost after that time.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any further discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let us show that agenda item 11 is passed unanimously. We'll move down to agenda item 12, which is consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2021-12, a resolution requesting approval to apply for a grant through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for the city of Statesboro, Georgia. Mr. Penny, if you will give us some insight on this.
Mayor, members of the council, this is grant to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. The amount of this grant would be $150,000. It's for some work that we would do out at the firing range, and we would be working at a training ground. And this would be in conjunction, we would be working with the Sheriff's Department. However, we would be the administrative agency that would be responsible for managing the funds, and therefore we are asking your permission to, we're asking you to approve the resolution so that we can apply for these funds. There's no match requirement.
Thank you. Any discussion by council? Seeing that there's no discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Let us show that the agenda item 12 is passed unanimously. We'll move down to agenda item 13, which is a consideration of a motion to award a contract to Hussey Gay Bell for professional services to conduct a wastewater treatment plant study in the amount not to exceed $52,250. Mr. Penny, if you'll give us some insight.
Mayor, members of council, since I've been here, I've heard on a number of occasions that at some point we're going to have to deal with our wastewater treatment plant. We've done upgrades to the plant. The plant was built in the 70s. And so what we're asking for is approval of a contract with Gaybell Hussey in order to have them do an evaluation of our existing wastewater treatment plant. And they will make recommendations as to what we need to do to ensure that it's providing the quality of service that is appropriate for our community. That could actually mean up to building a new plant. However, we're not starting out there. We want them to do a detailed evaluation of our current operations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Penny. Any discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. let us show that agenda item 13 is passed unanimously. We'll move down to agenda item 14, other business from city council. I know Ms. Barr, you had a thing or two that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention and let folks know, you may or may not be aware, but the folks in our community who are eligible for and get SNAP or EBT benefits, that's help with groceries, there's actually a state program, might even be national, to encourage folks to eat healthy, to eat more vegetables and fruits and fresh foods. And so they can actually, there's a program where they can buy $20 worth of groceries and get another $20 worth of vegetables and fruits, fresh foods for free. But it's not widely taken advantage of, but our local Main Street Farmers Market is participating in that program. So anybody who gets EBT benefits can sign up with them and order $50 worth, use their EBT to get $50 worth of groceries, and for free, get another $25 worth of fruits or vegetables. So I'm real proud of our local market for taking advantage of this and trying to help people eat healthier. Relinda Walker is the manager, and she's working with a group of ladies here in Statesboro to promote the project. This is part of the Linda B. Williamson cohort, if y'all are familiar with that. But these ladies are helping to promote the program. So it's kicking off this evening over at the Outreach Center on Denmark Street from 5:30 to 7. Anybody who gets EBT benefits and wants to take advantage of this program can go and get help getting signed up for it. You can do it yourself independently online, but if folks want help, they can go, and they're going to be doing it for Tuesdays, 5:30 to 7 at the Outreach Center. And once people sign up and place their order with the market, they can even get the food delivered back to them at the Outreach Center on Thursdays, if that makes life easier for them. So just wanted to let folks know about that program and promote it to folks, friends, and neighbors who might be eligible for that and can take advantage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else from council? All right, seeing that there's nothing else from council, we'll move on to agenda item 15, which is city manager's comments.
Mayor and council, I have three things I just wanted to mention to you. In your FYI packet, shared with you some information as relates to our rental mortgage assistance program. And as of yesterday, we were north of $95,000. Y'all had approved up to $100,000. And so really they've sort of taken down the application process because it's going to top out, and there are some people that did not get the maximum amount that are still seeking assistance because you would pay up to $3,000. So the United Way will be helping those individuals. But I would suspect within the next 2 weeks, we'll probably be completely out of those funds. Utility assistance is still there. Utility assistance spent just under $9,000. And again, you approved $62,000 for that. Even though those funds will still be there, but just want to make you aware, right now it's just shy of $9,000 for utility assistance. The other thing I just want to mention to council is that on Saturday morning, March 6th at 9:00 a.m., one borough and the city will be hosting a session from 9 to 11 on secure Statesboro. The police department, sheriff's department, Georgia Southern University, some of the agencies that provide assistance for domestic abuse and things of that nature will be there presenting the information. It is open to the public, but we're going to talk about what resources we have available in the city and what resources we need in order to secure Statesboro. And so that'll be in the Military Science Building on the campus of Georgia Southern University. And then the last thing I'll just mention is that March is very busy, so this weekend we have the Secure Statesboro, and then the next weekend City Council will be on council retreat on March 12th and 13th, and that'll be a Jekyll Island.
Just briefly on the URA action,
We just did.
I
I'm gonna yield to you then.
Okay. Mayor and council, just to get on the regular council agenda minutes, the Urban Redevelopment Agency, this morning did approve, a $4.5 million bond resolution with Truist Bank, with the, interest rate of 1.47%, with a maturity date of October 1st, 2030. What this will do is, for the first 5-year anticipated SPOS funds will cover the amount, and then later on, if SPOS does not renew, then then the city would be on the city's taxing authority would be on the hook for, in order to make those payments beyond that. I know y'all were all present for that URA meeting as members of it, but we just need to get that on these council minutes this morning. That's all.
Thank you. All right. We'll move down to agenda item 16, public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing that there is none, we'll move down to agenda item 17. Consideration of a motion to enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters, real estate, and/or potential litigation in accordance with OCGA 50-14-3B. Is there any need for?
Yes,
Okay.
real estate.
All right, thank you. All right, so with that being said, is there a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all right. Thank you.
That's very proud. Very proud. Represent Statesboro.
I know.
Statesboro strong.
There's only like, there's only 15 of us.